Africa Focus Day firstly was surprising in its own way because if you start and say it was a thought bubble back in January. And I've got to say, in discussing it with Anita and indeed more particularly Shireen, they were sensational with their support and embrace of the idea. And through the course of the year, as we start to find people and themes for it, Shireen did an outstanding job. I mean, really, it's all very well to have these thoughts, but I've got an expression called hatch, match, dispatch. So hatching the idea is the easy part, isn't it? But pulling things together and to provide a program that that makes sense to people to want to attend. Anyway, credit to IMARC, quite frankly. So the attendees were good senior level people, hence the good engagement. I think it's been said to me that there were possibly up to 200 people who'd registered for the day. The room would have had probably a good 100 consistently throughout, which is good room dynamics, good questions from the floor when we allowed them to have them because of the timings of things. But I'm really looking forward to sort of a debrief, rethinking about what we do for next year, because there's no doubt there's a strong support for it, and there's other players that we can bring into it for next year of same, if not more seniority. Really good. Well, I thought that there were several speakers who were outstanding, and Anna Rubin, when she did her background to Africa as such, remember she's a country risk person, that set a seed which was really good, following on from both DFAT and Austrade as such. Then of course there was a panel discussion which she orchestrated, really asking thoughtful questions that drew them out, but probably the standout was in fact Ian Cockrell. He gave a most interesting speech, which has really been picked up around IMARC, by the way, which was the conflict that is forever present, if you like, between what countries think they should get by way of royalty streams and the temptation to change that and change that upwards, of course, in contrast to what a company needs to be sustainable. And he put together, if you like, a template or a matrix for it to say, look, this is a way to progress it to seem to be fair. And what was really interesting, of course, as you well know, we had a number of mining ministers there from Zambia, from Burkina Faso, and that really resonated with them because they've got budgets and they're screaming for revenues in different ways to meet their needs. So to have this thing come about so that it meant that to have an organisation or business in their country which is sustainable for them as well as the country, I thought it was a very vital one to do. Well, firstly, with great respect, I don't think it was really developed very much at all. And in my opening speech, I said that there were three things that I'd look to achieve as president for the year that's been. Firstly, and we have formalised a partnership arrangement with Invest Africa and the Business Council for Africa out of London. Now, Invest Africa, Business Council for Africa, I've been their representative in Australia for some time. So I had a good ongoing relationship with them. They had worked throughout Africa for about 60 years, so have contacts, connections, which I thought could be invaluable to us here. Gateways, if you like, for business. At the same time, in formalising that, Invest Africa, we're just going through the throes of merging with them. And they're an even more aggressive, crassly commercial organisation out of South Africa. So the merge has happened, we've got a formal agreement. It's at the moment, I think I'd quite reasonably call it a motherhood statement about what we're looking to do, but we're already engaging on how we actually drive trade and investment. So that's a very positive thing to be able to engage at their end. But the second point I made was, it's all very well for that, but what are we offering from this end to connect with them? And the really consequential thing was, again, as you well know, Austrade changed their CEO this time last year. But I've taken up the time with both Jay Meek, who was formerly Victorian government, now seconded, not only seconded, now permanent, as strategy for Austrade. And with Jay and one of his managing directors, we have been discussing the shortcomings with Austrade and Africa. And the real shortcoming is that Austrade have got 14 regional websites for the world, but nothing covers Africa. So that's a bit of an oversight, if you could put it that way. So really what's happened, I've said what really needs to be that you've got to find a channel to take Austrade inquiries through to Africa, hence the Australia-Africa Chamber of Commerce. Now we've got a website, they've got a website. Quite frankly, both are yesterday's world. So what's really happening right now is that there is a development of a digital platform for Austrade, which we're going to mirror that architecture to become the conduit for Austrade and other entities wanting to access Africa. Now, the architecture is one thing. What we're really doing is pulling together the key people. I say key people have got interest in these things. I am aware that, for instance, since this initiative that AsiaLink are having the same conversation. It's all about extending the reach of what Austrade could be. In the course of course, that morning, we also signed a memorandum of understanding with Mauritius. And Mauritius, as you well know, is a financial gateway to Africa with all of their trade and investment structuring, tax, etc., and their double tax treaties. So that's another powerful motherhood statement that's been put to bed, but I'm already in active conversation with the chairman of that, Graham Robinson, to take it forward in meaningful ways. And finally, the point I made at that speech was the importance of the platform that IMARC provided, because this is a mining conference. But above all else, it's the Australian mining companies that have gone in there that have created opportunities for all those other sectors coming out of Australia. Healthcare, education, agribusiness, the whole range of them, which get pulled along because of the very activities. So a good day. Well, that's a day-by-day exercise in the sense there's 54 African nations, and they're all coloured with issues of, well, if we speak bluntly, perceptions of corruption and whatever. The problem is that Africa is actually doing very well in its own way, but who you deal with and how you deal with them. I mentioned earlier the issue of changing royalty streams because they get into trouble financially themselves. So right now, if you said to me who are the top nations to deal with there, it's probably Botswana, it's Rwanda, emerging is Ghana, but they come and they wax in their wane according to which head of government is there. I mean, right now, that bulwark of Africa, South Africa, has got its own real problems. So you keep working with them because you want to, at the end of the day, we're working with people. And we Australians are pretty fortunate because we don't carry much baggage in the world at large, and we're effective and we're good. So they like working with us if we can find the right people to work with there. Gee, what a good question. The next wave of mining investment in Africa. Well, probably the clarity and certainty of being able to work with them, which can range from the mining codes, the cadastry officers that are supporting all that, the certainty that you can deal with projects, because miners invest for 20 years or more. It's not a quick turnaround, 3-5 year payback or whatever. So you've got to have that comfort level, if you like, that the money that you invest on behalf of shareholders will in fact get a return and without being expropriated. IMARC is a very sophisticated senior dating game. It's fantastic that we have the opportunity just to mix and mingle and share thoughts, and I mean, most people will understand the pigeonholes that you're in and how you can contribute, be they mining services people, be they actual mining companies, be they fund people who are looking for opportunities. But one of the really key underlying things that I've loved about this particular IMARC, and I'm as guilty as anyone, is your IMARC Connect. It has been so effective in lighting up people within the categories you want, and the arrangements for it over there at the pod gets a bit congested, but really has been effective, and I can speak personally from that, where we've got some very good business in the pipeline as a result.